You know, today, after 22 years, is the final day of Skype. Skype called it quits today. And when you think about it, when you were making a FaceTime sort of call, that was your go-to place for a long time.
Video calls were done in one capacity at one point. It was
Skype.
like Skype.
That's all we had. Skype or FaceTime, maybe, right? But
FaceTime came after.
FaceTime came after. Skype was the OG. Well, if you want to be accurate about it, I believe Pee Wee Herman invented it first. Pee Wee Herman had that. No, but he had that video messaging. He had that video call screen back in the day.
All right, so fair enough. Before all that, it was Pee Wee Herman. But after Pee Wee Herman, who, by the way, his documentary looks really good.
It does.
End of May.
Skype was the OG when it came to video calls. So COVID came around, and you would think, all right, let's all get on Skype to talk to our friends and family because we're all here quarantined.
And coworkers, right?
And coworkers. Skype, that's what we had our meetings on. Yeah, man, we'll Skype somebody, whatever. I was in a long-distance relationship. Skype. Everything was Skype. And then when you needed video calls, because we were all, again, quarantined, all of a sudden Zoom became a thing. And you're like, well, what happened to Skype? Here's what happened to Skype. They dropped the ball.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the biggest fumbles in life, because today, after 22 years, it's over. Stick a fork in it. Skype is just a memory. It's just an old thing that we used to use. So when you think of other fumbles, the biggest fumbles in life, aside from the butt fumble, which is the king of all fumbles.
I'll give you one. Roger Craig fumbling in 1990 when the Niners are trying to three-peat.
Aside from Mark Sanchez, what are other fumbles in life?
It
could be
Tony
in
Romo
sports.
holding the extra point.
It could be, yeah. It could be sports related. That's fine. But it could also be just life related or business related. Because when you think of Skype, because Skype should have been and could have been that brand we all went to. Instead, Zoom took over out of nowhere. What were other ones that totally blew the opportunity? I think I'll give out the obvious one, Rich, because Blockbuster's always the company that comes to mind.
I know the details on all this because I am 2000s boy. I'm also on Sirius XM Pop 2K, and I've mentioned this quite a bit over the years. The way Skype sort of lost to Zoom, and you're like, how did that happen? You were the guy, Skype. How do you let that slip by? Like, how do you let COVID and a pandemic happen 5 years ago and not be the video person?
This was the moment you've been waiting for.
You would think, right? It's like,
right.
I almost feel like that company was like, one day the world's going to need us. And what, they weren't ready?
That's really the bottom line. Yeah, infrastructure wasn't there. People weren't in place. They weren't ready for the moment, and Zoom took over.
So I'm going to give you the two best examples that I could think of, and then whether it is sports, metaphorically a fumble, or an actual fumble. The biggest fumbles of all time. It could be an athlete that missed an opportunity to buy a team or do something, and maybe a big trade wasn't executed. The biggest, quote, fumbles.
Jack Mack says Skype not delivering in that moment or failing in that moment is only second to maybe Falcons, Pats. You know what I mean? In the Super Bowl.
Oh,
how do you blow this opportunity?
You're Skype. You blew it! You know how they always say there's things like brands that are synonymous that you actually say the brands like Band-Aid is a brand or Xerox, Q-tips, Kleenex. Skype was what you sort of said. Skype.
Yeah, I'm going to Skype. Yeah, let's get on Skype. We're going to Skype tonight, or we're going to Skype the meeting. Skype. What was I remember the sound, but do. Nope. Skype. Yeah, it was.
No, I'm saying not anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's done.
The two that come to mind for me. Blockbuster. It's been said in documentaries, and it's you have the sound effect?
Oh yeah. That was it. Which one was I doing with it?
I don't know. Maybe your own little jingle?
Someone's Skyping you right now.
But
you never hear that again.
Yeah, it's like that's going to be put that in the archives with the AOL signing on sound. Blockbuster.
You've got mail.
Blockbuster Video back in the day. When they had a chance to pivot to digital, they thought their better move was no late fees.
They banked on that.
They banked on no late fees. When there were internal people saying like digital, we got to go digital. They said no. You know how we're gonna take it to the next level? No late fees. Not only did the company lose money, at one point, Blockbuster was approached by Netflix 25 years ago, in the early days of Netflix, when you were mailing, the early days of like mailing a DVD, and Netflix said, listen, if you want, you could absorb us for $50 million. And Blockbuster said, no, we're good.
Everybody made it a Blockbuster night.
Blockbuster could have absorbed Netflix.
Everybody had the card. We were all invested.
With their streaming and mail infrastructure, and Blockbuster could have acquired Netflix for $50 million, and Blockbuster was so cocky and said, nah, we're good.
You know, this Skype story, I bet you Blockbuster, this is the best news Blockbuster got in a long time because this Skype story is just as bad. It really is. We didn't even know what Zoom was, and all of a sudden it was like a thing.
You know what the market cap for Netflix is today, guys?
What?
$462 billion.
Oh.
Dude, and think of how weak Netflix was too.
Yes.
Like they were sending DVDs to people. I had to sign into Netflix through my Xbox 360 when I first got it, and it never worked.
But you knew that there was something digital going on, and you knew that they're mailing DVDs. But the simple fact that Blockbuster, how many times have big companies acquired little companies just to remain the brand leader? Right? Like you just want to absorb so that you are still the brand leader. $50 million, no thanks. And Netflix is now worth $482 billion market cap.
I got a sports one and another one to go along with this.
Right, go ahead.
When you're talking about biggest fumbles in life or missteps, however you want to describe it, for Skype not to be what Zoom is today, man, what a disappointment. 22 years of business ended today. The classic one has to be the Red Sox trading Babe Ruth, right? Like what a misstep that was because the Yankees built their whole legacy around that guy.
Then bets.
Yeah, there's a lot of classic examples, you know, in sports history. Certain people were passed on. There's always classic examples there.
I mean, I think every team can name one legend that got away.
Exactly.
I mean, you could say the Mets, Nolan Ryan. The Mets were like, yeah, whatever, get out of here, Nolan Ryan. The Red Sox got David Ortiz because the Twins were like,
on.
the Twins like, yeah, he's not even going to start.
I mean, they didn't pass on him, but they got rid of him. He was just I think he hit 11 home runs with the Twins. When it comes to Skype, I think of MySpace because MySpace was something great at one point. Social media, MySpace, never even made it to something on your phone ever. And I thought it had such a perfect infrastructure for the time because you could personalize it. You made your top 8. You were communicating with people. You're meeting people all over the country, flirting with women, making friends. And then all of a sudden, you let all these bots and fake profiles infiltrate the system. And somewhere along the line, it lost its way, and Facebook took over, and MySpace was gone.
Hey, Danny G, I would have put you in my top 8 back then. We're boys like that.
MySpace was fun, dude. That was the OG.
MySpace was great.
Yeah.
And of course, there was Friendster and other things, but MySpace was huge.
Well, yeah, and as the meme says, we were all computer programming our front pages, remember?
That's what I'm saying. We were
Typing in
customizing.
codes
We're
and-
learning. Yeah, we're learning coding, personalized with our favorite songs. Everybody had a certain page. It was fun. MySpace was dope. Facebook came along and wiped it out.
But it's even worse than
They
that.
misstepped.
No, it's even worse than that because
I know Tom sold out and he made some cash.
Yeah, but listen, as similar to my Blockbuster Netflix story, at one point when they were both present in the social media space, Zuckerberg said, "Hey, listen, MySpace, if you want to buy us, the price tag is $75 million." And MySpace could have acquired Facebook
Another misstep.
for $75 million.
Another fumble. Look,
And-
Tom, I hear Tom's doing just fine.
Yeah, of course.
And remember, Justin Timberlake bought MySpace too at one point to try to save it.
But
it was such a great time at one point, and
Just
then
to-
they had a chance and they blew it.
just to give you the math on that,
Yeah.
$75 million, MySpace said, nah, we're good. So, Facebook, that's cute. We're good. Again, market cap for Meta, which is now Facebook, Instagram, and everything they own under that. Zuckerberg, the guy would have taken 75 mil, 1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
Oh,
Talk
I
about
think
misstep.
It's the richest. Meta is now the richest company in the United States.
But how do you think MySpace?
Maybe in the world.
How do you think MySpace feels when the whoever was running MySpace at the time said no, we don't want to acquire you for $75 million? That might be the biggest business blunder of all time.
And by the way, on the day where Skype is done, and it should have been everything that Zoom is today, when they had their opportunity during the pandemic, What was that other one that had a chance, that had a thing for a minute, like the party room? What was it called? Where everyone was getting together?
House party.
House party. Remember House party was a thing for a second? And people were hopping on just to get together and have like a social night via the computer.
I feel like everybody had a drink in their hand.
Everybody had a drink,
Yeah.
and hey, I guess we'll do this. It's kind of fun. They had their moment, but Skype really blew it.
Yeah.
So other missteps or biggest fumbles in life, what else you got, Danny G?
This is along the lines of Netflix, and the missed opportunity by Blockbuster, more in line with that. Toys R Us, you hear the stories about how they didn't innovate, so they died. They did not capitalize on the online retail boom. They dragged their feet. They didn't want to have a big online presence. They had a presence, but they didn't aggressively embrace e-commerce.
Yeah,
And
they believe that kids want to come in there and
Yes.
see the toys and the just this experience of going to Toys R Us.
Exactly. And so they left the market open for the competitors, Amazon, Walmart, Target, and they fell apart.
Yeah, it's a great one. Honestly, Toys R Us, you would think, how are they going to fall apart? Now your kids think of the toy store. You know what they think the toy store is? Going with mom to Target.
Yeah. Couple of aisles.
Stop it at Walmart. They got a
Yeah.
few aisles. Let me give
That's
you one
sad when I think about it.
more. Let me give you a sports.
It is. All of us new parents,
yeah.
we wish we could bring our kids to a real
Because
Toys R Us.
You remember the thrill of, man, Toys R Us.
Man, the world's ever changing. I'm going to give you one fumble, but since it's baseball related, I'll say this is a good balk. This is a little a balk, so to speak. The Yankees. I love this. I don't know why I bring it up at least once a year. One of the greatest bargains ever. I can't believe this was even real. In 1973, CBS, led by head executive Michael Burke, sold the Yankees to George Steinbrenner Sr. for $10 million. Like, if you're early 50s, to think that the Yankees sold in your lifetime for $10 million, that's insane to think they're now worth $8, and some people value possibly up to $10 billion that the Yankees are worth now. So one of the most storied, expensive franchises, almost worth $10 billion. CBS just unloaded them to a private buyer for $10 mil. You're Yankees, dude.
It's insane. There's also so many classic examples of people that passed on legendary acting roles, and that could be you, a legendary opportunity you missed out on. So the biggest fumbles in life, missed opportunities, Skype, goodbye. It was nice knowing you. You should have been everything that Zoom is. You already had a head start. Everybody had it downloaded. Everybody knew what it was. Everybody had a screen name. Everybody had it on their phone. How did you mess that up? So what else comes to mind? Sports and life. Hit us up, 877-99 on Fox.
You ever see someone get a chance and then the chance is taken away because something happens personally for them before they even get a chance? Do you remember? I'm guessing you do because he was a Yankee and a Met and an Astro and a Cardinal and a lot of Texas Ranger. Carlos Beltran was named the manager of the Mets. And then his ties to the cheating Astros made him have to step aside. So he never got a chance to manage a game in the majors yet. Maybe he will get that chance at one point, but I think to myself, like, that's a guy who was like, this is my dream job. I love it. And before he started, he couldn't even do it.
877-99 on Fox.
Let's go to Mike in Virginia. Mike, you're on with CNR.
Hey, what's up, guys? One thing I can always think of in sports-related football is the first time the Buffalo Bills went to the Super Bowl, led by the Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas. That Super Bowl was literally hand-wrapped to them, and it just went wide right, and that was it. And then ever since then, they went 0-4 for the Super Bowl, and now they're just trying to. But that literally was, they were the best team in football.
Bro, that was the year. Listen, they played better teams. You could argue that back-to-back Dallas Cowboy years where they lost 2 in a row to them, Cowboys were a dynasty, better team. You could argue when they lost to the Redskins, better team. But that season against the Giants, that was a Jeff Hostetler backup quarterback. Bills dominated. You're supposed to win that game. In fact, the Giants found a way to beat the Niners in the NFC Championship that year. So the Giants weren't even designed to be there. So, yeah, that is a Buffalo fumble for sure.
I would say 1984 NBA draft, you can't hate on the Rockets choosing Olajuwon, but the Blazers with Sam Bowie's got to be in the conversation, passing on Michael Jordan. That has to be a classic example of, oh my goodness.
But that's one.
missed
That's not, I don't think
opportunity.
that's one you ever get over ever.
No, like you had the chance to get Michael Jordan. We get it. Hindsight's 20/20, but you had that opportunity. So Skype, we don't know what you did wrong, but Zoom took the ball
Oy.
as
Yeah.
they say, took the ball and ran with it. Who else we got?
Boise, Caleb, you're on with CNR.
Hey,
What's up,
Caleb.
buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys? So, Covino, you actually took one of mine, but Portland actually fumbled 2 more times. They drafted LaRue Martin over Dr. J and then Greg Oden over Kevin Durant as well.
Wow. Yeah, and Odin, he looked like he was 45 years old then, hobbling around.
I almost felt like I saw that one coming.
Yeah, that was a shame, man. That really was a shame. The poor guy just had bad knees, too. So, yeah, that's bad.
Marley in Rochester. What's up, Marley?
Hey, Marley.
I got 2 things. One on the technological side. I live in Rochester, so hey, Kodak. Hey, whatever happened to Kodak, man? They were supposed to be giants in the film.
I do wonder,
Something.
with the advent of cameras on smartphones, and now the camera on your phone is better than any handheld camera you ever had. Do you think there early on was an opportunity for Kodak to partner up with an Apple or a Samsung? You think early on
They had to. Because they were
sure,
the league leaders. It was name recognition when it came to photos.
I'm sure at some point there was a
It was a
collaboration.
Kodak moment.
I'm
You
sure,
know what I mean? We used it as an adjective.
I mean, Pitbull rhymes it twice in the same verse.
I was just going to say that.
I looked it up. It says Kodak did arguably blow a major innovation chance by failing to adapt to the digital photography revolution.
See?
Yeah, they failed to adapt.
Oy.
That's probably, that's the case for so many people just in life. Rich, we've seen people in radio refusing to adapt and their career fizzles.
Yeah.
Like, hey, remember that guy who did those great countdowns or whatever? Yeah, he refused to adapt. So that's why you never heard of him again.
You know who I thought did a great job adapting? I've said this before, but David Letterman. Letterman had the wherewithal to say, we live in a social media world now where late night clips exist the next day. My snarky interviews and, top 10 lists, it's time for me to retire and come back in a couple years with a fun interview show. Like Letterman read it.
Adapt, yeah.
Yeah, Letterman reads it perfectly. I always give that guy credit for that because
I
he could
love
have
his
stuck around.
Netflix
He
show.
could have stuck around too long, and he never did. Eric in Virginia, what's up, Eric?
With the biggest fumbles, if I'm not mistaken, I think Yahoo had the chance to buy Google for $1 million at one point.
I think you are correct in that one as well. Again,
How about Jeeves? Jeeves probably had a shot. Ask
I
Jeeves.
used to ask him all the
I used
time.
to ask Jeeves everything. What happened to that guy?
Here's the thing, though. Can I just
Yeah.
interject this? You don't have necessarily the direction or the vision. If you're going to buy that company, sometimes like the people who were running the original small company that eventually blows up, they stay with that company and they make decisions based on not getting acquired by a bigger company. You know what I mean? So like maybe Facebook or Meta, if it was bought by MySpace, doesn't come up with the like button and Messenger and stories and it doesn't necessarily evolve the way that it did just staying on its
Well,
own.
what did Zoom offer that Skype couldn't? I really think this Skype story is as colossal as Michael Jordan.
It's up there.
It's up there with Blockbuster because I think we have a new one because Blockbuster's always the one like Blockbuster could have been Netflix and they blew it. This Skype opportunity, this was everything they asked for and they blew it.
Like the infrastructure was already set with Skype to help out with COVID-related issues.
What did Zoom offer that Skype didn't?
Nothing.
Check out what Yahoo had to do. In '98, they did offer one. They passed up the $1 million. They declined. In 2002, they offered $3 billion, but Google countered with a $5 billion request.
Oh. And now it's probably even worth, a billion times that.
I'll
What up,
give you
DB?
just a quick one,
Yeah.
a fumble recovery,
Ooh.
if you will.
Yeah.
NFL, remember back in the mid-'90s, the NFL is expanding. A lot of people are scratching their head how Jacksonville ended up getting a team because at that point it seemed there were other markets, specifically Baltimore was a team and St. Louis at the time. Now we saw the Rams end up moving to St. Louis. Baltimore obviously gets the Ravens. But because those two groups couldn't get their stuff in order, Jacksonville was ready. There's no way the NFL puts a team in Jacksonville nowadays. Like, it just doesn't.
It's true.
There's absolutely no way. But because maybe Baltimore and St. Louis didn't have everything that they needed, Jacksonville took the opportunity, and here they are 30 years later.
Dude, that really is the moral of everything we're getting at right now. It's when opportunity knocks, you have to be ready to answer. That's really what it comes down to. Skype was not ready for that opportunity, even though they had everything, or seemed like they had everything lined up.